Hello everybody, Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Books. Today I'll be reviewing Winter, the Guardians of Magic series by Melissa Nash. Number 10.
Aberystwyth.
University. I needed to use an app to say the word because I cannot say it myself. So please forgive me for that. Now, that is where she studied at the university in Wales. Looking up more of what she has done, that's where she studied geography. She has a TikTok account. I'll leave a link to her website in the description because that will lead to most of her work. If you check out her TikTok account and look at certain places that she's been and travelling, she has inspired a lot of her writing, and she also does a lot of maps. She has a Fiverr account, connect with to work on maps for your books. I highly recommend her for this sort of thing. Now, with the geography background and to her writing style, to her maps, you can get into the story quite well, to be honest. And you can see the work of art come forward in a unique way. Number 9. The story so far. Just to clarify, this is book 2 out of 4. I reviewed the first book on this channel. She has all 4 books out now. Where we are at the moment, the first book, the story starts off in the first book where the main character, there's 3 protagonists to the story. And through the adventure and where the story leads to, it explains that there were 6 Guardians of Magic prior to that. One of the other characters I'll mention later, her father, had a role of training other characters. So it was a nice premise. The story was good, and one of the antagonist figures in the story was also well done. As it led towards the climactic moment, the chapter name sort of already spoilt it, where 3 become 4. So it had a good premise, and each character was dominating in a particular element: wind, earth, fire, water. So the fire was the antagonist at the end of the first book. The story continues from first book to second, third, and fourth, and it has a nice flow how the 4 books connect, though each story is relevant to the season and to the current storyline and conflict. Number 8. My favourite character. The father, Saglin, to Shemedi, is my favourite character. He teaches Sarah in the first book how to use her magic and control her emotions. He also talks about the lore of being one of the 6 original Guardians of Magic. There's also been mentioned that there will be a prequel coming out to this series. With the Saglin character, I liked how he was engaging. He had a lot of experience teaching about fighting and swordplay. Now, it is kept simple how it's written, though the flow of the story is good. His character has that dominating feel within it, but also that loving feel. Number 7, Shemedi. Shemedi was my second favourite character, also the daughter to Saglin. Her element is wind, same with her father. Now, after the creed that had to be made with the king for their lives, they were also a party of 5 at this point, meeting back up with the father, and he says, I needed to speak to my daughter alone. She turns it round and says to the other characters, I need to talk to my father alone. The way she was dominating as that equal balance, it didn't feel like the character was a typical teenager or too big for her britches or anything like that. It felt authentic the way the character was in the story. Shemedi goes through a lot of character development. Their father also teaches her how to use magic with the power of wind, and Sarah the power of water, and how they can combine it together. So you might say at the bridge, when it came to one of the other commanders and the army, they made waves.
That's so funny. Last time I heard that, I laughed so hard I fell off my dinosaur.
Stop right now.
Number 6, GABRIEL. He was introduced at the end of the first book with the power of fire. One of the big intentions for the characters was to get him to meet Saglin, to work on his anger, work within his magic, and get to feel himself, get to know himself better. He also has a companion dog named Aztec, and another friend they help bust out of a prison. with the characters as well, it has that fantasy element, and as I was saying with the other things I've learnt with Melissa Nash, you do get drawn into the setting. The map helps, and the map was a good reference tool to go back to when you're seeing certain locations that are being mentioned within the story. I just found the party was easy to follow with all of the characters that were there, and the party ended up becoming a party of 7 characters, and they may have split off in a couple moments to different positions with the conflicts that were coming along, and it worked well. Number 5, Sarah and Stephen. In the first book, it starts off with Sarah in the first book, and then it introduces Stephen as a character or one of the guards. Within this story, he helps with the physical conflict, not the magical side. Sarah feels like she took a step back in this book, though in certain key plot points, her character still worked well in conjunction with other characters. It still was enjoyable. It also explains drawing magic from the earth, and that's something that worked well within the story as well. There are other characters that were in the first book that took a step back, and other characters that have taken a step forward within this story. Sarah's character, as mentioned, uses water as her main element. Number 4, 3 of the original Guardians of Magic. As mentioned, Saglin is one of the original Guardians of Magic. Astrid is another one who is part of the party. Now, there is a conflict with one of the enemies. One of the commanders has a message to pass on. Garen explains that one of the other Guardians of Magic, Dagaz, is still alive. Now, that was interesting because Melissa Nash has mentioned that there will be a prequel series as well. So it made me wonder what happened in the past. So this character was assumed dead and gone, and there's something coming forward to say that this character is still alive. So there were 3 of the original characters from a prequel that hasn't happened yet in this story. Number 3, King Paula's alignment. An alignment is usually the character, whether they're good, they're evil, they're neutral, lawful. Lots of different things come into an alignment. Now, with the character himself, he's against magic into the history, and then in the present he's into supporting magic. It's hard to say what his motives are, and even though some of the storytelling he wasn't in the book that much, it's hard to say if he is the central antagonist or if there's something other as a bit more of a mystery behind him. That was one thing I found that was engaging. It kept the story guessing, but it wasn't overcomplicated to follow the story. And even though there's still more story to be told within 4 books, I found there was something that took you away to somewhere else into an enjoyable setting, even though there is conflict. As far as the book's concerned as well, it is working well for a target audience of middle grade readers to young adults and older. So, I don't know, this book series has a wider range of people that can enjoy it. Number 2, killing off characters. Now, one of the hard things to do as an author, especially for new-time authors, when you are invested into characters, it is hard to determine who should live and who should die. And sometimes that conflict can be necessary to be more realistic with the story. There are characters, as mentioned, the original Guardians of Magic, the original trio from the first book, and then you have GABRIEL, you got a couple other supporting characters within the party. With that being said, I won't say who gets killed off, though it was a shock. It just comes into the war and it happens. And it didn't feel like it was too forced. It didn't feel like it was too simple either. Though with this story, killing off characters is something that she did well. And I don't know, sometimes some stories don't do too well with this. The book still leads on to say there's still more story to tell. It felt like a complete book, though. Number 1, final thoughts. I rate this book 5 out of 5. It's worth the read. I find, as said, for a lot of target audiences, it is a good book series to get into. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. It's just right. With the fantasy element, it feels like it takes you away somewhere else. It doesn't feel like the real world is conflicting within this story. There are different realistic troubles and quarrels within the story, though, as said, with how she's done maps with her profession as well, and working with other authors to create more books, I say if you're looking at doing any maps for books, contact her within the link to her website's in the description. That all said, that's it for today. Hit like, subscribe, comment. As far as the Guardians of Magic series goes, I'll be reviewing the next book, Spring, but that's another video and shall be told another time. Take care.